Hello, welcome to Newscentre. I'm Parikshit Luthra. Former Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan was arrested by the nation's anti-corruption body in Islamabad during a court appearance. There are visuals of paramilitary forces breaking doors and window panes of the court to reach Imran Khan before whisking him away. Islamabad police has said that the arrest has been made in connection with the Al-Qadir Trust case. The arrest comes as a major blow to the former Pakistani Prime Minister, who has been facing a slew of cases since his ouster last year. As of now, Khan is facing over 140 cases related to terrorism, blasphemy, inciting violence, among others. Khan's party, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, has called the arrest an abduction and has also appealed to the people of Pakistan to come out and defend their country. Let me now go across to our guests right now. We're joined by Mateen Haider, who will be with us in a short while from now. We're also joined by Hamid Khan, columnist and international affairs expert from Islamabad. Hamid Khan, how do you see this arrest? This had been coming for a while now. We had seen Imran Khan making very strong statements against the Pakistani military. I believe there are questions being asked by the Chief Justice of the Islamabad High Court as well. Give us a sense of the circumstances in which he was put under arrest.
Thank you, Parikshit. Yeah, as you said, there are many questions raised regarding his arrest, the way he's been arrested through the paramilitary forces and the way they use a sleeping warrant against him, which has not been even notified to Imran Khan's lawyer prior to that. I mean, it has raised many questions. On the other hand, as you have mentioned, that currently Islamabad High Court Chief Justice have called to the Interior Minister and other government officials to give the explanation of Imran Khan's arrest within the court jurisdiction and within the premises of the Islamabad court, which is, not unprecedented in Pakistan. And I mean, I believe that the public will take it as a vendetta against Imran Khan. And that's why there is a very high chances that there will be very big protest against this arrest of Imran Khan. And, in current political situation and in current economical situation of Pakistan, I think government took a very high risk by arresting Imran Khan. There's no doubt that for the last few days, Imran Khan's statements against certain, intelligence agency officers and others were, making questions and raising questions within the government and the power corridors. But still, I believe that, it will have a big reaction from the public. And let's see what Islamabad High Court decides about his arrest. Because if it is considered or declared as illegal arrest, then Islamabad High Court could give an order to release him immediately and, bring him to the court.
Right.
But we have not seen it in past. So let's see, because the NAB, National Accountability Bureau, is going to ask for his remand, physical remand for the further investigation.
All right. Could you also give us a sense? We're reading reports that no one really knows at this juncture where the National Accountability Bureau, where these paramilitary forces who arrested Imran Khan in this dramatic fashion have taken the former Prime Minister. Do we know of the location? What happens next?
To be honest, it has been told that he's been taken to the head office of, not a head office, one of the offices of NAB in Rawalpindi, which is a city adjacent to Islamabad. But as you know that, it's never been, very much clear when such arrested is made, because they don't want any kind of public to reach out on the place where he is being kept. But these are the questions I'm sure Islamabad High Court is going to ask already. But the only thing is that if they will try to do any kind of, extrajudicial action or against Imran Khan, the public reaction could be very severe, and the government should be prepared for it. That it is a very high risk for all the stakeholders in the government. That because, as you know, since he's been ousted last year, he's very popular in the public, and that's what he's demanding for the fresh election. That's why he dissolved two of his provincial assemblies where it was Imran Khan's government. So, instead of going into the elections,
right,
the government is taking actions against him. It is raising many questions.
Okay, now the PTI, that is Imran Khan's party, has threatened to go on a nationwide protest, hold protests against the government. How could this hurt the Shehbaz Sharif government politically?
Parikshit, in Pakistan, I mean, the current situation where economically people are suffering, and then people believe that Imran Khan's ousted is due to a conspiracy from American interference and the conspiracy from the current government. So, I mean, there are a lot of reaction from the public, and if it gets flare up, it could end up on something. That's why I'm saying Shahbaz Sharif government have taken a very big risk by arresting Imran Khan. And I'm sure they would have, calculated the risk and everything. But still, in countries like Pakistan, anything unseen could happen as well. And if you look at the current situation, there is already reports of many protests on different cities. And if these protests get, bigger and bigger, or if there will be any sad incident in any of the protests, it could go on a very dangerous level. So all these things has to be considered by the government, and it could cost Shahbaz Sharif his government and call for an immediate election as well. We have seen in past as well, when there was a public pressure and the movement in 1977, they had to arrest the Prime Minister Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, and then there was a martial law in the country of General Ziaul. So, I mean, whenever there is anything which comes under the political, movement, there are high chances of any kind of, I should say, unconstitutional action.
Right. I'd also like to ask you about the manner in which he was arrested, the dramatic fashion in which the paramilitary forces barged into the courtroom, broke window panes, literally broke into the courtroom and arrested him. What kind of a message does this really send out? Because here you have the paramilitary forces almost breaking rules clearly in the open and in the media.
I 100% agree with you that it has given a very bad impression, and that's what I was saying on another channel, that it is the government have tried to bring paramilitary forces against public. This is not the right way to do it. If they wanted to arrest him, there should be a proper procedure, and they should be done by the police. Involving the rangers or paramilitary forces is a very wrong message to the nation, and they should have not done it, because 230 million people of Pakistan, they love Pakistan Army. They can do anything, to go for Pakistan Army. They give their lives for Pakistan Army. So any action taken by paramilitary forces could have given a very bad impact, and it would give a bad impact. So I think Rangers or Army should clear their position as well in relation to this arrest. There must be some clarification from the ISPR.
Right. Is it possible that the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf may go ahead and challenge this arrest immediately? Could the Islamabad High Court, the Chief Justice's court, possibly may take it up urgently?
It has already been challenged. It has already been so moto by the Islamabad High Court. It has already been challenged, and that's what the hearing is going on. So I believe that we have to see what verdict of the court comes. There may be an immediate relief for Imran Khan, or there may not be, because we do not have any such example in past where they get such immediate relief that they have to release Imran Khan. But Imran Khan's legal team have already filed case, and they are expecting him to be released immediately. But we have to see in next 1 hour or 2 hours hearing that what it comes up to.
All right, dramatic developments taking place in Islamabad. Hamid Khan, thank you very much for joining us here on CNBC-TV18, giving us your view on the dramatic arrest of Imran Khan and what this means politically for the Shahbaz Sharif government as well. We're going to take a short break here on CNBC-TV18. On the other side, we get you a special exclusive conversation with Helena Koenig of the European External Action Service on India and European Union's position on the FTA and improving market access for European companies. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You are watching Newscentre. European Union expects India to implement the WTO ruling on information and communication technology products like mobile phones. I caught up with European Union diplomat Helena Koenig on the free trade agreement with India and spoke to her about how the FTA could take longer due to some of the challenging issues. And she also said that there will be no compromise on content for speed.
Number one priority is to have a good discussion about our partnership. We call it our partnership review, and basically it's discussing all the different sectors. We have a good cooperation, we have a good dialogue, and where we would like to progress together. So it's basically covering everything from climate to the environment to connectivity, what we're doing in the Indo-Pacific, and a whole range of other issues.
Right. I'd like to ask you about the India-EU FTA talks. What is the current status of the talks? By when could both the sides conclude negotiations?
That's a very good question. We've just had the fourth round, and I think it's fair to say that we had a good discussion in the last round, positive vibes, if I put it that way, and there's a high political commitment from the leadership on both sides. We will have a number of stock-taking possibilities. We'll first have a next round, and then we'll have a stock-taking by the Executive Vice President Dombrovskis and your Commerce Minister later this summer. I think it's fair to say that we could make more progress quicker. There are a number of challenging issues, but I think the important part is that we are making some progress and that the willingness is there. Then how long time it will take, it's very difficult to say, because from our side, and I presume from the Indian side also, the content of the agreement is more important than the speed. We want both sides to reach a result which will be the basis for our trade and investment cooperation for the next decades to come. And that may take a bit longer time than we would have wished, but the important part is that we come to a good result for both sides.
Right. You mentioned that there are some challenging issues which are slowing down the negotiation. Could you give us a sense of what those challenging issues are right now in talks?
I think there are a number of issues, and I'm not going to go into too much on the details, but I think if we just compare, for example, you will have tariffs on different goods, and some of them are more sensitive than others. I think it's obvious in any negotiations, but also I think it's important to know that the European Union, even if our free trade agreements are not identical, there are a number of issues that are very important for our stakeholders, member states and business, that are prerequisites for actually increasing trade or increasing investments. And that comes down to different rules, for example, technical barriers to trade, which actually hampers already today more investments and more trade. Another area which is extremely important for European stakeholders is, of course, trade and sustainable development. It is becoming more and more important that there is gains from a free trade agreement that actually goes to a larger part of society, and that is not at the expenses, for example, of climate considerations. And the question is how you reach to a good solution on that in a free trade agreement.
Right. You said trade and sustainability, climate considerations are very important for the European Union. Would you like to give us a sense of certain market access issues which you would want India to address for European companies?
Well, I think on market access issues in particular, I think that's roughly what is up in different agreements. What we try to do is to have as few goods, products, as little as possible that are outside the free trade agreements. We wanted to cover as much as possible of trading goods. But likewise, when I talk about things that will help trade flourish, it's actually to make sure that we don't have too complicated and still sufficient technical requirements. So it's all about aligning more the way we test products and the rules we have in between ourselves when we trade. That is extremely important. Otherwise, you may have an openness to trade, but de facto you can't trade because the procedures are too lengthy or take too long time or are too complicated. But I did mention trade and sustainable development, and there I think very much in our policy it's about reconfirming the rules that are already there, and that goes for both goods and issues like trade and sustainable development. But actually, if we don't progress a bit further than what we already have agreed under the WTO, for example, or in multilateral environment agreements. If we don't progress a bit above that, why would you have a free trade agreement? Why would you negotiate several years to reach that? So it has to be something that we can live and prosper with for decades actually to come, because it does take quite some time to negotiate a free trade agreement.
Right. So greater standards, stronger standards when it comes to sustainable development. Ms. Helena, I'd also like to ask you about retaliatory measures that India is considering in case the European Union scraps trade concessions for India following the WTO ruling on ICT products. What has been the conversation with the Indian government on that front?
I think, to start with, I think the ruling of the panel in the WTO was very clear that the additional duties that were put on by the Indian government were actually not in agreement to the undertakings that India has in the WTO. So for the moment, our expectations is that India lives up to the recommendations of this ruling and scrap these additional tariffs that goes on top of what is happening. That's basically where we are right now with this. Apart from that, we do discuss, of course, with the Indians, but like I said, the main part is that we expect that since this was a panel and there was a ruling, that the Indians would then take the logical step also to abide by the ruling.
And in case India does not abide by the ruling, will EU put in place measures?
Honestly, I think it's very, very difficult to comment on something which we don't know what exactly is going to happen. So I wouldn't want to speculate on that. You know that we have instruments to rebalance those kind of things, but I think it's far too early to come out with a statement on that. And definitely there are those in charge of that in Brussels who will be much better placed. But as I said, for the moment, we are where we are, and let's see how things develop, and we'll keep the channels for communication open until then.
Right. I'd like to ask you a report by Kepler, which indicated that many European oil buyers are circumventing sanctions on Russia by buying oil products from India, UAE, Turkey, China, and Singapore, which continue to be buyers of Russian oil. How would you react to these reports?
Listen, there are two big aims with what we are doing with the ban of purchasing oil, crude oil products from Russia. The first aim is to make sure that we don't fund the Russian war machine so they can continue their aggression on Ukraine. That is really the key part of it. The second part of it is that while doing so, we want to make sure that oil in the market does not become too scarce or more expensive. So keeping prices down is another key aim. And as you know, there is a G7 price cap. But I think it's the most interesting thing to note here is that even though there are a number of countries, including India, who have not signed up to the price cap, de facto the prices are below the price cap, which exists for the moment. So in a sense, we are where we are, and the effects, I think, still are felt by Russia. They get less money for their oil, and the prices have gone down in the international market. And those are two very important aspects of what we wanted to achieve.
If I may ask two more questions related to the trade deal, because you made some important points about EU's priorities. The European Union has come out with a carbon tax regime. Would you want India, when the negotiations continue over the next 7 to 8 months, would you want India as an ally to agree with the carbon tax norms, with the climate action laws that EU is bringing? Would that be a core of the FTA?
No, I think when it comes to our carbon border adjustment measures, the carbon tax as you call it, or be it other legislation that are linked to our climate action, what we call Fit for 55, i.e. 55 decreases of emissions, I think it's important to point out that these are legislations that are valid for all countries inside Europe and outside Europe. So it's something we all have to follow, and it's non-negotiable when it comes to the actual substance of this legislation. Now, if you look at the carbon border adjustment measures, the legislation, there is actually a space for exemptions for those countries who do similar measures, or measures that have a similar effect to what we want to do with the carbon measure, border measure adjustments. And I think it's very important to point at that, because what we're trying to do is not the taxation which is important. It's actually to make sure that we don't have carbon leakage, that we would do something inside the EU, and then it can be circumvented even by our own industry, by actually importing things that would go against what we're trying to achieve as going in the forefront from these issues. So again, it's non-negotiable from the aspect of the legislation is there, and the aims of the legislation is there worldwide. But indeed, if other countries are ready to look at their own carbon measures, carbon capture measures, carbon adjustment measures at the border, we are very happy to have that dialogue with them and to compare what is being done in that country see if it's actually the similar aims that are achieved with a different type of legislation. And we're very happy to take up that legislation or the discussions with countries like India, explaining more what is behind and how we implement our legislation, but above all to see if there are any initiatives on the Indian side that would actually help Indian products to have an easier access without having an extra fee on them coming into Europe. But that is not part, like I said, it's not part of the FTA. It's not part of the negotiations as such. It's more of a work we will be doing and a dialogue we will be having with the Indian government and the experts on the Indian side to see how we can actually together be in the forefront to make sure that we have less carbon-intensive industry, better use of what we're doing of energy, for example, when we produce different things. And that aim, I actually think we have in common with the Indians. I think we all look at those measures. Then it's a question on how we actually end up and what kind of mechanism we have to put that into place. But like I said, it's the effects of any mechanism we put into place. It's not the need to have an identical mechanism. But it's clear from my discussion today that there is an interest from the Indian side to at least discuss these issues, how we can actually make sure that we have a more less carbon-intensive industries in India too.
Right. And finally, would you be pushing for an interim deal as well, an interim free trade agreement, or would you only want a full trade agreement as and when it is signed?
I think we've been very clear on this before. I'm not in charge of the negotiations, but I know from earlier discussions that an interim deal is not normally what we work with. We do have, we want a fully fledged deal, a comprehensive agreement. It's very clear from our stakeholders that this is what we want.
All right, that was EU's top diplomat in conversation with CNBC-TV18, saying that they don't want an interim deal, they want a full deal, and they won't compromise on content for the need for speed. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of News Centre. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.